All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful idea from our source material. The idea that mockery is way more than just words. It's actually a spiritual strategy, and it has some very real consequences.
You know the scene, right? We've all been there. Someone makes fun of something sacred. Could be prayer, a moral principle, even just basic human dignity. And if you call them on it, the answer is always, hey, relax, it's just a joke, or come on, I'm just being realistic. But what if it's not nearly that simple?
So the source we're digging into today argues that this whole behavior, it wears a mask. It likes to present itself as being super intelligent or having this clear-eyed realism, maybe even a kind of tough love concern. It's all a performance, right? A performance of being smarter or more worldly than anyone who actually holds something sacred. But, peel back that mask, and the source claims there's something much, much deeper and darker going on. The goal isn't about being clever. It's about getting control and at the same time silencing your own conscience. So what is really going on here?
This is where it gets really interesting. The source suggests that mockery isn't a sign of being superior at all. In fact, it argues for the complete opposite, that mockery is a strategy, and it's born from a deep, deep feeling of lack.
So the source asks this really provocative question. What if mockery is actually a shield? A defense mechanism that someone uses when they feel, deep down, this sense of inadequacy, but they just refuse to face it. And what's so fascinating here is how this source breaks down the psychology of it all. It's basically a three-step process. First, it starts with a feeling of inadequacy. Second, there's this refusal, either conscious or unconscious, to do the actual hard work of improving yourself. And third, mockery becomes the shortcut to feeling better. Not by lifting yourself up, but by tearing someone else down. And this right here is such a brilliant way to show the difference between the excuse and what's really happening. On the surface, it's a performance of being smart. But the real driver, it's about taking that hidden feeling of being less than and flipping it into a performance of arrogance. It's like a psychological magic trick. Okay, so this is the real kicker. Why target sacred things? Well, the source argues it's because genuine reverence, it requires humility. And for someone who's running from their own feelings of inferiority, humility is absolutely terrifying because it would expose the very gap they're trying so hard to hide. Mockery is the ego's perfect escape route.
Okay, so if mockery is just a defense, what's the big deal? What's the actual cost? Well, this is where the source brings in this idea of karmic intelligence, the notion that the universe has a kind of cause and effect, and that even our passive acceptance of mockery has a price tag.
And the source gives us this really key term for it, energetic consent. It's the idea that when we see something sacred being ridiculed and we just stay silent, or we give that nervous little laugh, or we just kind of go along with it to keep the peace, we're participating. Our silence isn't neutral. It's actually a form of consent.
And this little act of consent, it's not nothing. It actually has real consequences inside of us. It creates what the source calls an integrity split. Part of you knows something isn't right, but your actions are saying it's totally acceptable. And that internal fight, it just chips away at our self-respect because we've betrayed what we know to be true. The result, according to the source, is that this misalignment with our own truth, it drains what it calls our karmic account. Now, this isn't some kind of cosmic punishment. It's presented as just a natural consequence, kind of like a bank account. When you keep making withdrawals from your integrity, your spiritual balance just goes down.
And hey, just to be super clear here, when the source says the divine, it's not just talking about God in a religious sense. It's a much bigger concept. It includes these fundamental principles like sacred truth, moral order, basic human dignity, even the very idea of meaning in our lives.
All right, so let's bring this down to earth. Let's make it concrete. Where does this pattern actually pop up in our day-to-day lives? The source gives some very, very specific examples. So here are some really common forms you've probably seen. It can be as simple as that little smirk when someone mentions their faith, or using sarcasm to chip away at a sacred text. It's also in those subtle moves, like framing moral restraint or humility as a weakness, or dismissing reference as something primitive or backward. Now, this is an absolutely crucial point. The source is so clear about this. This is not about healthy debate. Questioning things is not mockery. Disagreeing is not mockery. The line gets crossed when it turns into contempt, ridicule, and this kind of performative dismissal that's designed to belittle, not to understand.
And this pattern, it gets even clearer and frankly a lot more damaging when you see it in our closest relationships. Here, mockery can be used as a weapon to justify control, entitlement, and breaking sacred bonds like marriage. It's a way to turn off your conscience right before you do something unethical.
And yeah, this leads to a pretty chilling conclusion from the source. It identifies this consistent pattern, whether you're looking at ancient myths or modern families. Mockery is the first strategic move. It's the spiritual and psychological groundwork you lay to dissolve your conscience right before the exploitation begins. Okay, so what's the alternative? If mockery is a trap and just staying quiet is costly, what are we supposed to do? Well, the source suggests the answer isn't to fight back with more aggression. It's to cultivate something else entirely.
See, the whole point isn't to win an argument. It's not about proving the other person wrong. According to the source, the real antidote is an internal state of clarity, an awareness that's so deep and profound that the entire game of mockery just becomes, well, irrelevant. And there's this quote from the Bhagavad Gita that just illustrates this state of being so perfectly. This equal vision. It means that a self-realized person sees the sacred spark in all beings. It completely gets rid of the social and intellectual hierarchies that mockery needs to survive. I mean, if everyone is sacred, who is there left to look down on?
So once this kind of clarity is there, the whole mindset just shifts. Irony and cynicism, they lose their cool factor. Mockery is no longer seen as smart. It just feels kind of crude and unnecessary. Contempt just dissolves on its own. And in its place, you get genuine inquiry.
And this really brings us to the core principle of the whole thing. The source argues that what truly matters from a karmic point of view is our loyalty to truth. What do we stand for, even when we're silent? Because what we excuse, what we just let slide without that inner refusal, that's what ends up eroding our own spiritual foundation.
So the final question this all leaves us with isn't really about judging other people. It's about looking in the mirror. When we find ourselves in those situations and we choose to stay quiet, what are we really protecting? Is it our temporary comfort, our social standing, or is it our own lasting integrity?